The best way to persuade is to make the other person feel good about saying yes. Something that I have been doing in my family is teaching different persuasion principles, persuasion techniques, persuasion tips. And the other day, because with young children, you have to make things funny and interesting, and you can do that as well. I was teaching about tag questions, where instead of commanding, demanding, or reprimanding with an imperative statement, do this, stop that, which is how a lot of let's say authoritarian parenting models are and have recommended, where it's kind of like military boot camp at home with the kids. And while that can work for kids who are naturally fearful and anxious and are approval seeking and validation seeking, that doesn't result in them becoming high agency, high achievers. That results in them going out into the world being afraid that someone more powerful than them is going to tell them no, stop, don't, can't. And so their creativity is naturally limited. At the same time, permissive parenting, or its clone called gentle parenting, it focuses, I believe, too much on relationship and being buddies as opposed to being a guide for your children. And there's not any rules at all because rules are scary, right? So it's a rejection of authoritarian parenting without proper balance of understanding that a child is a child and rights are commensurate with responsibilities. So if a child has this many responsibilities, they have this many rights. Does that make sense to you? Now, of course, we understand that human life has inherent dignity. I believe this. And so there are legal minimum viable rights that children have. Now, fortunately, we could talk about issues in which children do not have medical rights, if you know what I mean. But that's not what this video is about. This video is about fun ways to teach persuasion techniques as a parent or perhaps as a professional persuader. Now, a persuasion technique to help people feel better about saying yes to you rather than commanding is to do a little pre-suasion. And so a tag question is where you make a statement followed by, is it not? Or does it not? Or would it not? So instead of saying, come here and do this, you could say, it's time for this to happen. Is it not? And so it's an easy reply to say yes to because you're asking a question of the obvious. Now you could take that suffix sort of question, the tag question, put it at the beginning. Wouldn't you agree that? Wouldn't it make sense that? Wouldn't you like to? Those sorts of questions. So with my kids, I was doing this rather fun example, exercise, where we were trying to have a conversation, but every question, or rather every question or statement in the conversation, we used tag words. You'd like to read this book now, would you not? Wouldn't you agree that it's time to read this book? Little children's book, right? And of course, this resulted in great hilarity ensuing. You can do the same. Wouldn't you agree you can do the same? Can you not? And so now you use both of them for the same statement. But what does this do? I gave the example of a child demanding to play a video game, which tends not to go so great. I want to play this right now. And maybe you want to invite the child and you want to invite the parent. So just imagine how differently this goes. Most professional persuaders act like toddlers in their sales and their marketing, where it's both being afraid of the parent, aka the prospect, they put them in that role, or they have a tantrum, telling them what to do, demanding, especially in the sales copy. But you're not doing what's in it for me. So I said to the child, instead of demanding, come play a video game with me right now. Instead of that, you could do a little tag questioning. It's fun to play video games together, is it not? Wouldn't you agree? Wouldn't it make sense for us to play a video game together right now? You see, of course, it's a hilarious question when a small child is asking you that because you know exactly what they're doing. But what's the goal? The goal is for it to be easier to say yes, isn't it? So you as the parent, so now imagine you're the role of the parent. Which is easier to say yes to? When the child is polite and says, wouldn't you agree it's fun to play video games together? There's a few minutes to play a video game together right now. Is there not? How much easier is it for you, the parent, to say yes to your 7-year-old? To that line of questioning, where you're not actually telling them or asking them for the sale. You're leading up to things that you know that they would feel comfortable saying yes to. It's like a hypothetical. Yes, it is. It is fun. Well, you know what? Yes, we might have time to play a video game now that you ask. Because you're not saying, as a child, you're not saying, can we do it right now? You're asking questions that come prior to that they can agree with. This is the key to the persuasion treasury. Issuing asks that you know they will say yes to. I do not yet believe you've comprehended how powerful this is. I think you might if you watch the rest of this video. The next example I'm going to give comes from Scott Adams' book, How to Fail at Almost Everything and Still Win Big, now in its second edition. I worked with him on that, on a number of books actually. And in How to Fail at Almost Everything and Still Win Big, Scott Adams talks about how the optimal workout is a conversation, it's an argument, it's an excuse system that out of shape, unfit people experience when they're trying to find a way out of it. They're focused on what's the perfect nutrition strategy, what is the ideal fitness regimen, so on and so forth. But he posits, what if the best workout for you is the one you're willing to do? Now we enter the game of self-persuasion, realizing that you can persuade yourself to achieve any lofty goal if you simply start with the percentage or the progress or the milestone or the step that you're willing to do, the smallest one you're willing to do. I have now been consistently working out for a year and a half without fail. And it was in part because this question re-entered my consciousness. What is the absolute minimum workout I'm willing to do regularly? And I thought, well, I am willing to do 75 kettlebell swings twice a week with a 25-pound kettlebell. A year and a half later, larger sets later, and a much larger weight later, my minimum willingness. Think about this. It's not like I'm saying, okay, I'm now doing things I'm not willing to do. If you do the little things you're willing to do, what will happen is you will find yourself willing to do things that are even bit greater. So now what I'm willing to do, I've gone from 25-pound kettlebell to a 62-pound kettlebell, and going from 50 to 75 swings twice a week to twice a week still, yes, but 250 with a 62-pounder. The willingness that I have to do that, here's what's wild. The willingness that I have and I feel to do that is the same willingness I felt for doing a 25-pounder twice a week with 50 to 75 swings a time. Wow. So your willpower is not even part of this. It's not what's the most extreme thing I can force myself to do. That's the opposite. This is why people fail at all of their goals all the time, and they fail to persuade. Is they make these ridiculous asks of themselves and others. I have tested in my ghostwriting business, lisecghostwriting.com. Over the years, I've tested downsells where, okay, maybe you're not ready to purchase the full package, but what is the minimum you're willing to purchase from me? I began that in 2020, where I started creating courses and information products and coaching programs. And my business has increased significantly since then. My business can now survive and thrive without doing ghostwriting. I still do it, but you look at the revenue, past, present, future projections. Do I need ghostwriting anymore? Not like I did. Not like I did. Because the power of the downsell, because the power of persuasion, where you make it easy for someone to say yes or easier and to feel good about saying yes. Because ultimately, maybe my ask is this big giant services package. But if my minimum accepted answer is way down here for a $20 book like my big classic bestseller, So Good They Call You a Fake, it's $3 on the Kindle. And then in there, you learn about courses that I sell that are between $47 and $499. Maybe you're willing to buy one of those. You see where this is going, right? I'm launching a program here, actually this week, that is how to come up with the title, subtitle, log line / headline for your book, designing the book description. That's going to be the product description that sells the thing. It's going to go on the dust jacket. It's going to go everywhere. The table of contents, the direction of the book, what's in scope, what's out of scope for the book. So you can go write it yourself and you don't even need a ghostwriter, but you're willing to and able to write the correct book for you. That's amazing. It's for a very reasonable price relative to ghostwriting services fee. And even what I charged for that service in the past, doing in a one-on-one capacity. So I'm testing it. I expect it to be a fruitful test. But this is the sort of thing that you can do. What's the minimum viable ask that is willing to be received and say yes to? And maybe it's something silly. Maybe you want to convert an unbelieving spouse to your religion. Okay? Is the easy to say yes to ask to go to your religious service with you? Probably not. What's the easiest thing for them to feel good about saying yes to? The easiest for you to ask and for them to say yes to and feel good about it. Well, maybe there's a fun social event that you could bring them to, that they'd be willing to go to, that's going to be fun. And it just so happens that it's sponsored by or run by or managed by members of that religious community. And maybe you can arrange it so that they make a couple of friends. And then maybe the next ask is to do what you can to maybe inspire them to build upon that acquaintanceship and into a friendship. Go out and do a couple of other social activities to see them again. Maybe go hang out with them separately, quietly, and not at all related to the religious activity. So then it's not you inviting them when they are invited. It's your quiet standing invitation for them to come to the religious activity with you, but it's their new friends whom they like who are also inviting / pressuring them. And that makes it easier to say yes. You see how this works, right? Most people would just go for, well, it's all or nothing. Do it because I asked. And I think that sort of approach in professional and in personal persuasion results in suboptimal outcomes for everyone. Because if you just had a little bit more patience, instead of asking or saying, we're going to church together, wouldn't you agree that mini golf is fun? Next weekend we're free, are we not? There's a mini, and wouldn't it be fun to go to this mini golf next weekend with people with friends of mine from the church? See, notice how different those feel to say yes to, even hypothetically. This is life-changing stuff. I think now you're getting it. I do. I think now you're comprehending this because this affects every single relationship that you have. And the key is, people think that persuasion is manipulative, where you're coercing or tricking someone into doing what you want them to do. That's not the case. What, in fact, persuasion is when it works is you are giving people what feels good to them to receive, to accept, and to reciprocate. This is why I tell you that when you, as a persuader, make people feel good about saying yes, you have the keys to the kingdom. Here they are.